We have got Lucy on a 2 week board and train, and I'm going to take you guys through an up close and personal session explaining what we do when we use the clicker with Lucy and how we power up a clicker. Okay, so a couple of ways you can charge up a clicker. One is that we would use it as what you'd call a temporary release from a obedience exercise. The other way that you could use it is that you would just pay in position, and we're not going to be using it to pay in position. We're going to be using it as a temporary release. So when we do any, so right now she's jumping up at me, so she's trying to beg me for the food because she knows I've got food on me. So I'm just going to ignore her, remove the food. It's what you call negative punishment. So I am removing something to decrease her behavior until she gives me what I want, and then I'll probably engage with the clicker then. Click, and then food. So to explain what we've just done is we're going to be using the clicker as a temporary release with Lucy. So we do it in 2 phases. Phase one, we just get her used to the clicker, which she's already done while she's been here this morning. So we will just click and give food, click and give food, click and give food. In any old fashion, we can drop it onto the floor, we can give it straight to the head, we can just do something where she's going to notice the click makes food appear. And that's essentially what you're doing. If we go way back to Pavlov's dogs and go into his classical conditioning discoveries, we will notice that when he was getting his classical conditioning effective with the dogs, there was always a very clear precursor of a sound, something neutral, precursing something of meaning, which is like food. Okay, so she's just going to explore the placement beds. Good girl, good job, good job. So yeah, first we're just going to give a click and food any old way. And a lot of the time we'll just do it where we give it to the head, like that. A click and I give food to the head, okay? But then once I've charged that up a little bit and she's like, okay, click means food's coming, I'm then going to start trying to get my reflex response, but I'm going to change how I do it, and I'm going to make her move from where she is and come to my hand for the food. And that's how we power up the terminal release reward marker. And what that gives us access to do is send her away to something, click and mark when she gets there, and then she comes back toward me and then gets her food. Okay, so it looks like this. I click and then I move with the food. Now, be very, very mindful of what I'm doing there, where I'm clicking and I'm staying still while I click. So I click and then I move with the food. Okay, because I want the click to be such a clear precursor to her getting the food that she understands that the click means that food is coming. The click almost has to make food appear. So we can't do it at the same time, because the click will then become maybe a little bit white noise and maybe a little bit insignificant because it's happening at the same time and something's taking precedence, which is the delivery of food. Okay, I wanted to clearly precursor this happening. Okay. So that's going to be us using it as a temporary release. If you go back into the history of where reward markers come from, it was originally a whistle with dolphins in SeaWorld, where they would have to reward mark the dolphin for doing a specific behavior in like a swimming pool, and they couldn't mark it when it was way across the other side of the swimming pool, jumping through a hoop or carrying a ball or something. They couldn't mark that specific behavior with food because they couldn't swim over and give the food the instant that they did it. So they'd have to create a marker that marked it, and then the dolphin will come over and get the fish from the trainer. Okay, so that's kind of what we're doing, is it gives us access and markers to be able to just mark exactly what they've done. So it'd look like this if we were doing it in obedience. Sit. So she don't think her obedience is too good, so I'm probably going to move towards her as I say sit, which will put a little bit of pressure on and get that bum down. Sit. And then how we do it is, as soon as she got into that sit position, so I'm obviously a bit late now, but as soon as she gets into that sit position, click and reward. But when you've done that enough and we've click, move, it will look like this. Sit, sit. Probably use a layering hand net right now. Now when she gives me that sit, I can click and she can come out. She left a little bit early then, but you can kind of see the idea. So I'm going to do some practice reps of her so you can see what I'm doing, okay? Catching her attention, click, move. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch hands a lot as well, so she starts to understand that the food actually comes from me and not just the same hand. If I do it from the same hand all the time, in the same position, it'll become a pattern, it will eventually become a habit, and then what we're going to have is a dog that is always reliant and starts to get a little bit obsessed with one of my hands. We don't want it to get obsessed with one of my hands. We want the dog to get obsessed with click is coming from me and I'm moving in different directions. It also helps it if we need to release her from somewhere, if we're doing recall, etc., and we click when she's on her way back to reward the action of coming back. She can be coming from behind us, from the side, she can be coming from in front of us. It just allows us to mark different positions and bring her out of from different angles. Keep switching hands. So I have what you call supply and distribution hand. So this is a supply hand, and then this is a distribution hand. Okay? So supply and distribution. Now, what I'm doing with the supply and distribution hands is I'm always going to have food in here, and I'm going to pass it over to this hand. Okay? However, when I'm doing this charging of the marker, I want to have supply hand, distribution hand. I'm going to have the food already in my hand. I'm going to put this clicker with the supply food like this, so I can click it. I click, and then I move with this hand. So watch. And I move. Just notice that I'm precursing my movements, okay? So I've switched now. I've now got supply hand here, distribution hand here. Put the clicker into this hand, and I'm going to click and then move. Switching hands all the time. Just note that precurse, like I said. I'm precursing, I'm going to move. Drop the piece of food there. It's something I really don't want to do when I'm charging a marker or training a dog. I want everything to come from me. I want all the engagement with me. Click, and then move. Click, and then move. Click, and move. Click and stay still. Move with the hand.